Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Thoughts of Freedom. Tonight, we are going to discuss self ownership.
Great. Self-ownership is an important part of what it means to be a voluntarist, what it means to be an anarchist, an anarch. For me, the first thing I needed to know when starting to kind of look at what self-ownership is what does freedom mean? And to me, freedom is a pretty simple thing. Those who want to manipulate the word want to make it this big complicated thing, but really all it is the state that you're in when no one is making you do something you don't want to do. And that's pretty simple. Self ownership is the capacity. First of all, with people, we talk about ownership and what that means. And people can argue about one way or the other way or what have you. It's why I personally also link it to the idea of rulership. No one rules me, no one rules what I do. So for me, self ownership is like no one has me like as a slave. They don't hold on to my not only my thoughts but my actions. They're all my own. They are something I choose to do. Maybe I use influences. Maybe I'm influenced by God. Maybe I'm influenced by other people on my actions. But it's my decision to make the decisions that I make, to do the things that I do. And self ownership is that part of us that no one should have any control over, because when you start not being the owner of you and it's like looking at who does own you. And if the answer is someone outside of yourself and they decide that you should do something that isn't in your best interest, that's usually not going to work out for you. How have you figured out self-ownership, Nicco?
Self-ownership, from my point of view, is very. I mean, it should be the same. Everybody should have basically, quote unquote, the same ideology of it. Yet, it's different situations that help you create your identity. Because when you don't have your identity, you don't have ownership of yourself. You're not able to really figure out who you are. So you let everybody else tell you what to do. Like you were saying, it's when somebody coerces you or forces you to do something, that's not ownership. Yet when you lack the what's the word? When you lack the initiative to try and move forward, like with yourself, with being yourself and not allowing anybody to control your actions, that's when you are truly your own. And I say that as in growing up and learning how to really take hold of myself and accountability for all the things that I do and have rulership and autonomy over my life as I'm moving from my parents into growing into a young man who's going to explore this world. I am working on my authentic ownership of myself in
Mm,
being true to everything that I want to move forward in. So with that, I am in the craftsmanship of true self autonomy. Unfortunately, we are zip tied and hog tied and cinder blocks tied to our feet and thrown at the bottom of the river to this goofy ass system. You still have the ability to have true self ownership. Have the ability. I am cultivating the ability to have true self ownership with finances, um, spirituality, and cognitive thought, how I move forward. Um,
nice.
so it's a very it's a richening experience because nobody's truly free for themselves until they are themselves. They're still
Mm.
grown men going through midlife crises and women going through midlife crises because they allowed themselves to be coerced into living this monotonous 9 to 5 kind of ideological life that they just are walking zombies, and a zombie is just only controlled by its hunger that's never satiated.
Mm,
So
mm,
in my goal and attempts of real self freedom is the preservation of my real inner childness of whatever purity is left, my responsibilities to my religion, my family, and not my religion, but my spirituality, my essence to the God herself. You feel me? Um, and just being quote unquote, pardon my French, a real ass nigga. Yeah.
Nice.
What about
So
you, Chad?
yeah, so it's interesting that you went down that route, because that's, I mean, it's really where it all begins and ends, right? Is when we are not in control of our own emotions, of our own responses to stimuli, when we're not in control of how of our own discipline,
Mm-hmm.
we make ourselves very susceptible to coercion, to being tugged in different directions,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes it to where you make the argument actually pretty easy for the person who's trying to coerce you, who's trying to guilt you, who's trying to force you into something, because they can point to your failings, your flaws, and your tendencies, and maybe
Mhm.
even get out in front of those tendencies and those flaws and find a way to use them against you, to put you in a situation where you feel like you have no choice. um, and so it's when we take those opportunities on a daily basis through disciplining ourselves, disciplining our appetites, our passions. Like you said, that, a zombie fighting, or going around looking to fulfill a hunger that can't be satiated. When we have those kinds of appetites and drives pulling us in all these different directions, and we don't have control of them, we become a slave to those things.
Mhm.
And those are the things that are very easy to be used against you, to enslave you in other ways. That's how we have become enslaved in this consumerism that we see all around us. Is everybody's giving us another little hit of something that we want,
Mm-hmm.
and that hit, all it's going to cost you is your autonomy. All it's going to do is cost you your self ownership. It's going to
Mhm.
put you in a position where you're going to do whatever they say, because if you don't, they're going to turn off the Wi-Fi, or they're going to cancel Netflix, or they're going to, whatever it is, right?
For
And
sure.
so it starts and ends there to me. Like, you've got to exercise actively every day. That's why I love that Marcus came up with the term anarch, because we don't live in an anarchist system, society, or anything like that. So to say that we live in anarchy, or to call ourselves anarchists, is kind of weird in and of itself. But to call ourselves self-ruled, that starts right where you described, right where both of y'all described, is it is claiming your control over your emotions, your responses, and your own discipline, whether that's through prayer and fasting, or some other, exercise, or, whatever diet that you're on, or anything like that, and how you consume media, how you interact with people. All of those things play a role in how you are actually able to express yourself to the world, and to be true to yourself, and to not be led around by the nose by some of these really enticing tricks that the world can have up its sleeve. So self-ownership is critical. When we start to try to understand the concepts of freedom, of anarchy, of government, what all these things are, self-ownership is where it begins and ends. Because if you don't own yourself, then who does?
Absolutely.
And if you don't know the answer to that question, and then you start to have things pop into your head and those things aren't you, and they aren't like the guiding principles that you really believe you should be following, then you're in trouble. So you need to really examine that, and start to think about how to approach that.
Agreed. Chad, I gotta add, and I know that we were going to go each of us one term, but I wanted to. When both of you were talking, it brought to mind the philosopher Epicurus. Epicurus taught that we should do what makes us happy, and most people that read that and think that means do whatever the hell you want.
Immediate
And
gratification. Yeah.
correct. But Epicurus is very clear in his writings, and he says that to truly be happy, you have to live a moral life. And to truly be happy, you have to give to your community, you have to give to your family, you have to give to yourself. And I think that in that, it captures what both of you were saying, and I hope that it captures what I said as well, that yes, you should be doing what makes you happy, and what makes you happy should be good.
Yeah, the more selfish and self-centered I've been, I've found myself more miserable. And when I'm actually living my life as a gift to people, not as something where I'm, having people take from me, but where I'm actually offering myself as a gift, it's a whole different experience. Life opens up in different ways that you wouldn't even imagine.
Amen,
So
brother.
we appreciate everybody joining us, and don't forget to like the channel, subscribe to the channel, and share these little snippets that we put out. We'd love to have you come and join us on Monday nights for Aquarian Anarchy, and we look forward to seeing you there. Come join us in the chat, and let's all be free.
Stay free, friends.
Peace out.
Baby.